So I wanted to make this video because anytime I mention that I invest in rental properties and I rent exclusively to Section 8 tenants, I always get this kind of weird look, right? And I don't really think people understand that Section 8 is not a location. Okay. So I want to really break that down in this video to show that you, as the landlord, you are in full control where your property is, right? So when I say a Section 8 rental, I don't want you to think the worst. Okay. In fact, my program really and my mentorship and my online course, it really talks about buying properties in neighborhoods that you would be proud to own. You know, you do not buy in neighborhoods that you or even someone that you love or care about, you wouldn't feel comfortable with them living it, right? It's just a recipe for disaster when you simply just buy a property because it's so cheap, or it could be a cash cow. There's a lot of ramifications behind that. And if you want to go really deep into that, I have a 6 hour training that's in the link of this video. Like 6 hours. I'm giving you a free training on Section 8 investing. But this video is going to tackle the myth that Section 8 is a location, right? So I'm going to actually show you a few pictures because I think this is what comes to mind to people when they think about Section 8. So look at this image, right? So you see this is a broke down apartment building or whatever, right? And it's very unfortunate because there are some people who live in conditions like this. So I don't want to minimize that this is a possibility. But what I want to make sure I pull back for people is to understand that you are in control if you purchase a property like this. Now I pray for the people who are subjected to this and really can't be in a position to do better. But why, as an investor, would I go into a situation and buy a property that looks like this, right? Or maybe like this. They think a project or something like that. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. Okay. So I'm going to really tell you, right? So, number one, um, you again are in control where you buy your property, right? So, unless you buy a property and it has maybe an HOA guideline to where, you cannot rent the property out, there's never going to be a time where someone says, hey, you cannot rent to a Section 8 tenant. It's either going to be it's a rental allowed or a rental is not allowed. Okay. So the only time where renting to a Section 8 tenant or just renting to a tenant in general should be out of the question is if the math doesn't make sense. Okay. So if you ever ask me, I've gotten this question from my viewers, where's a good place to do Section 8? My answer is going to be wherever the math makes sense. Okay. Section 8 is not a location. I will repeat, Section 8 is not a location. You simply find a property that makes sense financially. And again, I have a 6 hour training that the link is in the video. And I'm actually going to go through an example in this video. But if you want a full comprehensive look into how to actually analyze properties and go through the full process, take the time and watch that video. But once you find your property, and it's in the neighborhood, a neighborhood that makes sense, something somewhere that you're comfortable investing in, and the math makes sense. Section 8 is simply a strategy to ensure that you get paid on time and consistently. That is it. Section 8 is not because you buy an inferior property and you somehow look at a Section 8 tenant as an inferior tenant. That should not be your motivation when you go into Section 8, because that will put you in a position that you're going to really end up hurting yourself because you're already going into it thinking, I can halfway it. When or not put as much energy into it as you would if it was a cash tenant. And that is a huge mistake. Okay. If you treat a Section 8 tenant just like you would a cash tenant, that Section 8 tenant is going to take care of your property year over year because they've never, or it's a high likelihood that they've never experienced that type of landlord relationship since they've been in the Section 8 program. That's the experiences that I receive. They're typically blown away by simple courtesies that I afford them. Like blown away. Like simply by if they have a maintenance request, I take care of it. They're like, "Oh, wow. Oh, I have a leak." Or the door is not working. And I take care of it. I get it done, right? But what you have landlords who look down on Section 8 tenants and they move slow. And unfortunately, when there is a clear indicator from you as the property owner that you don't care, I really do feel like it translates to the tenant. And then at that point, they don't care. All right. So to reiterate, Section 8 is not a location. Section 8 is a strategy. So even though the channel is Section 8 rental property investing, I don't want you to misconstrue that I'm only saying that you can invest in certain pockets of neighborhoods, low income or whatever like that. Now, it does need to make sense financially. That's why I live in Atlanta. The areas financially where it would make sense for me in Atlanta, I'm not comfortable with the location, which is why I invest in Cleveland, Ohio, which is, if you watch any of my other videos, you know that I have a competitive advantage in Cleveland, Ohio, because that's my wife's hometown. And I always tell people to invest ideally in areas you have a competitive advantage. It might be your hometown, it might be your spouse's hometown, it might be where your kid went to college, it might where you have be where a relative is there, somewhere where you have some type of eyes or some type of intel to make sure you're not buying a property that's going to bite you in the butt in the long run or even the short run. so so um the I feel confident that I can always find properties that make sense financially and also in good enough neighborhoods to where I feel comfortable even being hundreds of miles away. Okay. So now I'm going to kick over and show you. I'm going to literally lie on, right in front of you, go shopping and show you how I actually look for properties. I haven't vetted these properties or anything like that. I actually haven't looked for a property in a while, but this is exactly what I would do. All right. So I'm going to kick it over and share my screen. All right. Cool. So nothing fancy here. I'm on Zillow.com. Okay. Now, typically when people start there, they're obviously going to go the retail route. But as you grow your skill set, build your network, it's a great chance you want to, graduate to an off-market strategy. You get a better return on investment. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to act like we're buying retail. Okay. So the first thing you want to identify is your investment area. So this is one of the zip codes that I love to invest in. It's 44125. It's in Garfield Heights, Ohio, and Garfield Heights is a suburb. It's an east side suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. Now, what I'll do here, I'll put some parameters in place. So again, 44125, obviously for sale. Let's just say up to 120,000. And yes, if you're watching this video and you grew I'm from New York, so you see these prices is crazy. So I'm gonna say 80,000 to 120,000. Okay. So as you can see here, just by putting that in, it gave 9 results. Um, my sweet spot is 3 bedroom, 1 bath homes. Okay. The reason now I can put 4, there's 2 and take off exact match and just do 3 plus. But nothing, it didn't change. But I really do prefer 3 ones because 3 ones and 4 ones, the the jump up in rent that Section 8 will afford you is not a huge difference, and I'll actually show you that in a moment. It's not a huge difference. So why pay for the extra square footage for the property when you can really get away with that, with having 3 bedrooms, and the ROI comes out better? Okay. So 3 bedrooms, 1 bath is sufficient. We want to look just at houses. So now that dropped it down to 8. Go to more. Um, yeah, I'll keep that on. I do prefer a garage. I do. Okay, so that eliminated one. And then we want, for square footage for a 3 bedroom, I do like to have over 1,000 square feet. So I would say that, but I really don't want more than like 1,600 square feet. So I'm going to say 1,000 to 1,750. So now we're down to 5 solid listings at that point, right? So let's go ahead and hit apply. So once we hit apply, we have it sorted here from highest to lowest. But for me, I always like looking at the lowest first. So this house right here is 3 bedrooms, $105,000. They just did a price cut. I recorded this video September 4th of 2025. So they just did a price cut on August 30th, so 5 days ago. And those are always good signs, because again, when you're buying retail, it's no different when you're buying retail for anything versus wholesale. There's a markup, and what you want to do is get it as cheap as possible. Now, there's pros and cons to it. If you get it cheaper, then that means there probably going to be less concessions. They say, oh, well, I'm not going to fix this. Or, as we look through these pictures, I can already tell it's outdated. But if you can get a house cheaper and clean it up, sometimes it's just flooring, fresh paint, and even if it's some mechanicals that need to be changed, so what? If you're an investor, it makes sense to, take care of that on the front end, because then you don't have to worry about repairing it once you have a tenant in place. That's one thing I would say. Don't trust any owner that you purchase the property from, especially have your realtor ask them, hey, was this your personal property or was this a rental? If it was their personal property, if someone personally lived here, I'll give them a higher chance that, hey, they probably maintain the property. But if it was a rental property, I give zero grace, zero, absolute zero, because most people go, Cleveland is known to be a cash flow market. So people from other states, they buy there and they really don't take care of the property, long story short. So I don't give any grace. I actually would prefer a property that's been on the market for a while that I can negotiate down. Because even though that this property says 105, I've purchased properties that were listed for like 130 and got it for 80,000. So you just never, ever, ever pay the sticker price, ever. All right. So I'm pulling it up here. This is a standard looking house, right? Now I've purchased several houses that look like this. What I typically do is take the awnings off and put shutters. It makes the house look more modern. This actually doesn't look too bad from the front. Definitely seen worse. But that's the first picture there. Let's see. So let's look at the rear. The roof. The roof might need some work, but when you're investing in Cleveland, I mean, it's going to be some weather conditions you got to deal with. You got a decent backyard. This is where the the issue might come, right? Now, for the sake of Section 8 rental investing, right? I want you guys to know that Section 8 doesn't care if your kitchen is modern. Okay. Only thing Section 8 cares about, the actual program, is if you have a functional um, living space, and they pay you based off of the number of bedrooms and your zip code. That is it. That is it. They don't pay you if you have a quartz countertop. They don't pay you if you have fresh paint. They don't pay you if you have brand new flooring. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't want to do those things. Well, not the quartz countertop. I wouldn't do that. But I'm just saying, like, a refresh is helpful because, it looks like these floors are those vinyl floors, and that's just going to look ugly and peel up and all that type of stuff. It might just make better sense to go on the front end and put luxury vinyl plank, which is an inexpensive option, looks way better, right? And it also is more durable. So what I would say is it's okay to actually make upgrades to your property, but make sure you're putting the upgrades in for durability and not for cosmetic purposes. It's not because, oh, I want it to look nice because this will attract a Section 8 tenant and da 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 da. You got to remember the folks that you're going to be renting to. They're good people. Some it just like it could be a billionaire who's a bad person. It's going to be bad people who have Section 8 vouchers, but for the most part, it's going to be good people. The reason why I say you have to remember this is that you're not renting the house, okay? So don't fall in love with the actual aesthetic. Focus on the functionality and the safety of your home. These people, some of them will be like living with relatives. Some of them might actually be in a shelter. Okay, so you might look at this kitchen and say, "Yuck, it's outdated." Da, 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 da. They're not worried about that. They're just looking for a roof over their head. So you got to change your mindset when you actually purchase a property and what repairs you want to do, right? Because again, when the inspection happens, and again, I have that in my training, I walk you through some of the things that you should be aware of. They never will come back and say, "Oh, this kitchen is too outdated to get the rent." It has nothing to do with it. Does the kitchen have operable appliances? Is there any leaks? Is there any trip hazards? Are the lights working? Those are the things you need to focus on. But on the front end, though, this is definitely an outdated kitchen. So this is the reason probably why this property has been sitting for a while. So you just want to negotiate that now. But just on the surface here, I would put new flooring. You probably can paint these cabinets, and I probably would just paint. You see the trim here, it looks old. Probably paint the ceiling, maybe update the ceiling fan. These are things that are pretty inexpensive, that can really bring a lot of value to the property. Not for the sake of the rental, but the value of the property over time would be better. All right. So this is a bathroom here. You can see that this, you know, just kind of looking here, you can see that it's definitely the flooring. It kind of looks newish. It just doesn't look like it was installed correctly. Because this looks like a new vanity. The shower tub combo kind of looks new, but I don't know what's going on this little rust area here. It just looked like it was poorly installed. Um, this looks okay. Like, what is this? Okay. So again, when I look at this, I wouldn't say no, but you know what I would say no about? I would say heck no for the price, and this is the reason why it's been sitting. So if we scroll down, you can see, let's see if it's been on the market for 215 days. So, but again, these are the best properties to get. So 215 days, let's see what the original price point was. So they originally listed for 120, and then it went to 109, and then it went to 105. This person is desperate. This person's probably going to have to really sell this property for $80,000, or less. But this is the type of property you want. Okay. So what the next thing I always do is look at Street View. And you see, this is even further proof why you should strongly consider a property like this. And even going to the beginning of the video, that Section 8 is not a location. If you remember, I showed you this, right? You know, most people think Section 8 is this. This is not Section 8. Section 8 is determined by you. When you have your property and you accept a Section 8 voucher, it can be anywhere. So don't think Section 8 is this or this. Section 8 can be this. Let me go ahead and add it back so I can show you this. Boom. Not me. Here we go. Boom. So Look at this neighborhood. This is a nice neighborhood. Would most people think that this is Section 8? No, not the people I encounter. I always have to educate them that this is Section 8. You determine Section 8. Section 8 is a voucher. That is it. And as long as you comply the local housing authorities landlord requirements, which is your initial packet. Again, I'll walk you through that in my 6-hour training. But then like ongoing inspections, making sure that you pass, your rent comes every first of the month, you know. Look at this home. This is a nice neighborhood. So so the next thing would be, okay, well, how much can I get for rent for this property? That would be the next thing. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna stop sharing here for a moment, and share my screen again and show you this file for, give me one moment. Should be coming up now. So, this will be comparable across the board, right? So the name of the county that I invest in, so I'm in Cleveland, but it's Cuyahoga County, and that's why this is Cuyahoga County, well, Cuyahoga Metropolitan Housing Authority. So whatever your housing authority is for your county, you just simply put like, you know, uh, whatever the county, and then put housing authority rent determination, or you can put what is the fair market rent in my county or by zip code. Okay. So remember, I was looking for 44125. Okay. So I would go ahead and select that. And you can see here that a 3 bedroom, and notice it doesn't say 3 bedroom with fresh paint and what I say, quartz countertops and dishwashers and air condition, central air, and oh, it has to have 3,000 square feet. Square footage means nothing. Okay, as long as it's 3 legal bedrooms, it's the same, right? So that's why learning the right neighborhoods and then the right ROI for the property size makes perfect sense. And that's what I teach. Okay. So you can see here, a 3 bedroom, the payment standard is $2,052, uh, $2,052, right? And you remember I was telling you earlier, it's not a huge difference between a 3 and a 4. You see how it only goes up $150? So 2052 to 2208. Yet for a 2 bedroom to a 3 bedroom, it goes up $450. You see that? So this is the reason why I do prefer a 3 bedroom. Okay. Now, one thing to look at here, this is the payment standard. So what that means is that if a recipient is approved for a 3 bedroom, the housing authority will pay up to $2,052 in support. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean your rent. What it means is that, because oftentimes they actually help them with utilities. And so a portion of that will definitely have to be allocated to utilities. So, um, not to give too much of this video, but it's a strategy that I use to I actually pay water and sewer for my tenants because I'm able to get a bigger chunk of this payment standard. Typically, it's going to be like anywhere between like 80 and 85% of the payment standard. I normally get just because I pay utilities. If you say I don't want to pay any utilities, it's typically probably going to be about 70% of this number. Okay. I never want to do electric and gas. They need to pay their own bill for that. But the reason why I like paying water is because if I see a spike in the water, that typically means like, a toilet is leaking or something like that. And as a property owner, I want to get in front of those things. So I don't mind doing that. Plus, depending on where you live, the water bill is typically going to fall on the landlord, the property owner, anyway. I had a tenant that lived in my apartment for a full 1 year. This is before I was doing Section 8. It was a cash tenant. They lived in the property a whole year and never paid their water bill. And when they moved out, I was like, "What?" And they were like, well, yeah, they never paid. And I'm like, well, why didn't y'all turn the water off? They said, well, we don't turn the water off for safety reasons. I'm like, wow. So that was my, um, you know, cue to be like, never again. So I always pay water and sewer. And what happens is, like water and sewer for a 3 bedroom, one bath would probably be about 125, 150 in my market at the most. And I typically see that they give about 225 extra to account for it. So it's just the ROI is better for me to do that, but it's up to you. Long story short, though, never assume you're going to get this. Always put some type of percentage. If you want to do no utilities, I would say 70 to 75. If you're going to do some utilities, 80 to 85% of this. Okay. So that's pretty much how it would work. The way you would know whether or not it's a good deal, my formula is that I want my mortgage to be I want to be able to pay my mortgage at least 1.5 times with my rent. So for 2052, let's just say this was $2,000 for easy math. So $2,000 payment standard. And I said, hey, I'm going to apply a 80% um, uh, ratio to it because again, you're not going to get 100%. I'm going to pay water and sewer. So 80% of 2000 is $1,600. Okay. Um, a minimum you want to do 1.5. So, but I actually prefer to do two, meaning I can pay my mortgage twice with my rent. So to do that, if 1,600 is the rent, I really want to target a mortgage around $800. Okay. So to get a property that is about an $800 mortgage with the rates currently today, honestly, that's probably going to be roughly about a man, it might be a property under $80,000 for sure. But again, that's just what I shoot for. So again, this is what you would probably go back to this property owner and say, hey, I can do it for 70, right? And they're gonna say, 70, how dare you? How dare you do me like that? And they'll say 90. Okay. And you might say, okay, well, let's do 90, and then I'll give you escrow, and it's contingent on an inspection. So when the inspection happens, I don't even care if it's a new construction. An inspector is always going to find something. So let the inspector do their work. They're going to find, they're going to say, oh, this is that, this is this. And you think in the back of your head, you say, okay, well, I got them down to 90 already. I really want it for 80. Let's figure out how we can get some of these concessions to get it closer to 80. And that's how you would operate, right? Um, so so again, this is let me switch back to the actual listing. Take that off. Add to row one. Stop sharing. Be right there. Let's see. Share screen. Back to Zillow. And we are up. Okay. So again, this one is at 105. This would be a great one to really just kind of figure out what's all going on with it, do the math, run it through a payment calculator, and say, hey, what price point would I need to be to get to an $800 payment? Because again, once you get a property that's an $800 payment and you get a tenant that can pay you $1,600, think about the comfort you have to know that, man, man, I'm getting $1,600 guaranteed. My mortgage is 800. You know, now something could happen that month that costs more than $800, but it's pretty rare that that happens, right? Most months you don't have maintenance requests. You might have a maintenance request 2-3 months out of the year for per unit, right? So the moment it happened, it's typically something like a plumbing issue where it's hey, my the water won't drain and someone has to snake it. So it's not going to be a whole lot, but sometimes it's a major issue, and you have to be prepared for that. But just think about month over month, you get looking at a gross profit of $800 for a property like this, if you were able to get it down to $800. Okay. I go in depth on everything in my 6 hour training. The link is in the actual description. All right. But let's look at another one here. So again, Section 8 is not a location. These are nice looking properties, nice lawn. Let's take a look at everything. So 44 pictures. All right. Look at this, nice place. Okay. Now, we'll say, don't be fooled. My preference, again, is always to get the ugly place. Some people will go against that because they say, oh, I don't want the work. I don't want this and that. I'm telling you, it only got to happen one time. I was that same person, right? But once you get in there, you say, wow, they just put lipstick on a pig. And a lot of this times you have to pull this stuff up and do it over anyway. It kind of make more sense to just get one that's already ugly. So this is one definitely that they, maintain better, or at least, you know, and the basement looks really clean and accessible. Um, yeah, I mean, it's decent for sure, right? And let's look at the street view. So let me scroll down. Oh, a bunch of pictures, and they even put the floor plan in here. Okay, so they don't have the street view. Yeah, okay, it might be in the listing. Here we go. So again, Section 8 is not a location. This is a really nice neighborhood. Okay. Nice neighborhood. People walking in the neighborhood, you know, looks pretty good. No empty lots. This is a property I would be proud to own. This is a property that I would say, if someone I cared about needed a place to stay and they lived in the vicinity of this property, I would say, man, I would love to rent you this place. Like, stay here, you know. Um, Now, obviously, you can go in more detail and look at crime data and stuff like this. But me, again, I have a competitive advantage. I know these areas down to the street, So the more and more you learn them, the better, right? So that's why when I see 44125, I immediately know uh, there's certain parts of the area that I wouldn't go to, but for the most part, I would say probably about 80% of the zip code I'm comfortable with investing in. Okay. So this property right here is listed for $110,000. Okay. Now, if we know we need to be at 80,000, the chances of this one coming down to 80,000 is probably pretty slim, because it is pretty fresh. Okay. It was listed for sale just today. So this one is fresh on the market. It's the polar opposite of what we just seen with the other listing. And again, if this one posted today for $110,000, this ruins the last listing we just looked at. That guy or gal, if they think that they're going to sell that house for 105 and it's been on the market for 210 days, yet this fresh looking property posted today for 110, they might as well just go ahead and drop their listing down to 80,000 because that one clearly needed a lot of work. Okay. But yeah, this is the process. And I don't want to extend this video for too long because again, there's a full 6 hour training that can really give you the whole shebang. And go ahead and stop sharing. That'll give you the whole shebang of how to invest, not just in Cleveland, but just the investing principles overall. I wanted to do this video to really just dispel the belief that Section 8 is a location. It absolutely is not. You control the location. As long as you're buying properties that make sense financially, you're in great shape. And again, the Section 8 part is the strategy. I'll add this as a tidbit because of the environment we're in, right? So a lot of folks say, well, what if Section 8 goes away? Yeah, okay. That's a possibility. I think it's slim, but it's a possibility. But if you're buying properties in neighborhoods that you are comfortable with, neighborhoods that will attract any type of tenant, you'll be fine. Again, Section 8 is the strategy. The rent that you collect from Section 8 is still market rent. So in that example, $1,600 it would just be a $1,600 cash tenant, right? Now the problem is that with a cash tenant, I've dealt with them before. You know, you're gonna deal with sometimes, hey, I didn't get my check, or hey, I'm a little short, or if you're renting to a couple, one they break up. You know, those are some of the things that come with those tenants. Or a big one, if you get a really good one who pays on time, they make good money, they don't want to rent long term because they're looking at it like, why do I want to pay Moses' mortgage? You know, I can go pay my own mortgage. So what you deal with is constant turnover. You deal with the good ones don't stay long because they have options. Okay. So if Section 8 were to leave, my students would understand that, hey, we shift gears. We just take our quality property, because I never coach people or mentor people to buy trash properties. I teach them to buy great properties, maintain them in a great way so that whatever tenant comes in, ideally Section 8, because we could sleep good at night knowing the rent is there, and that our tenants stay long term. But if by chance something were to happen to Section 8, again, you just pivot and go into with a cash tenant. That's all you do. Okay. So don't let anything deter you from your journey of being a rental property investor. I love Section 8. I think it's a great, um, I feel like I give back. I definitely give back because I afford quality housing to people who need it the most. And it's been a great situation for me, my wife, my family. And I just look forward to continuing to expand my portfolio. And again, if you want to learn how to do it the right way, go ahead and watch the 6 hour training that's in the description. Now, that training is going to be available for a limited time. I don't know when I'll pull it, so you need to make sure you watch it. But the lifetime access link will be there as well. And because what will happen is I'll refresh the content every year. So you can go ahead and lock in a one time charge to get lifetime access. That would be the smartest way to do it. But if you want to go for free and watch the training, you can absolutely do that. All right. Well, appreciate you so much and talk to you on the next video.